This is my first engagement with the vinyl community. I have wanted to be a part of it for quite some time, but unfortunately my voice is simply inadequate. That is until now. I am using a voice cloning device that has taken a sample of my voice that I had used as an interview conducted some 12 years ago. I have been without my voice for almost a decade now as a consequence of Parkinsonism, so it is really quite wonderful to be able to regenerate my voice and to use it to discuss what I am passionate about, which is music. So here is my response to the Vinyl Tag 2025. Question 1. What is my best purchase, old or new, of 2024? That would be the Hillbilly Moon Explosion, Back in Time on Cleopatra Records. This is a wonderful piece of rockabilly-infused, sophisticated pop music by this superb Anglo-Swiss 5-piece outfit. Contained within it are numerous musical gems including Sometimes Late at Night and my personal favourite, 1979. This is a joyous record that ought to appeal to anyone with a penchant for well-written, sublimely performed, catchy tunes, be they rockabilly, psychobilly, or otherwise inclined. Question 2. 50 years later, the best album of 1974. I don't think that it was an especially vintage year, but I would probably go for the Sweets' Desolation Boulevard. Alongside all of the stomping glam nonsense, there is some fabulous guitar playing and anthemic songs. However, I am not currently tempted to invest in the Sweet album of 2024, despite Phil Aston's ringing endorsement of it. For me, the band ended with the passing of Brian Connolly. Question 3. An album that defines a genre. That would have to be the Meteors' In Heaven from 1981, which defines the genre of psychobilly. It is all in there, from the fascination with horror, B-movies, sci-fi, alongside the punked-up rockabilly guitar of P. Paul Fenech, undoubtedly a genius, as well as the imposing figure of slap bassist and co-vocalist, Master of the Dark, Nigel, now Susan, Lewis, and of course the superb drumming of Mark Robertson, making extensive use of the floor tom that would become a hallmark of the genre. From the first song, Paul Fenech's The Crazed, through to Nigel Lewis, Rockabilly Psychosis, this album has stood the test off time remarkably well. It is utterly indispensable and should be sought out by anyone trying to get an accurate picture of the British subcultural scene in the 1980s that was steadfastly ignored by the fashionable music journalists, with the notable exception of Sounds that had the Meteors grace its cover in 1981. Question 4. An album from the 1980s that you still play? The Stray Cats debut album. It is a work of considerable wonder. There is a definite infusion of punk to this astonishing album. This was rockabilly with balls for a new generation, from Runaway Boys to Rumble in Brighton to Rock This Town, and of course Stray Cat Strut. This album is a masterpiece. Question 5. Best album from your home country. I would have to pick the Sex Pistols' Never Mind the Bollocks, which start to finish is crammed full of melodic, anthemic gems. Just take Bodies, God Save the Queen, and Anarchy in the UK, and you have 3 of the greatest songs of the 70s. With Johnny Rotten's iconic snare, Paul Cook's faultless drums, and the quite sterling work of Steve Jones on guitar and bass, you have a perfect album. Question 6. An artist that you miss dearly? Lux Interior of The Cramps, the most extraordinary frontman ever to grace a stage. He was so compelling, I had the great pleasure to see them play on 6 occasions, and the first of those at the Brixton Academy in 1990 was the greatest gig that I have ever been to. The man was completely unhinged, climbing the Marshall stacks, all the while strutting the stage in tiny PVC underwear and high-heeled shoes. He really was a one-off, the closest that I have seen in recent years. For someone broadly in the same league would be J.D. Wilkes of the legendary Shack Shakers. Question 7. The best live album in my collection. The Meteors live, with the third incarnation of the band with Steve Ginger, Meadham on drums and Rick Ross on bass. The album is positively incendiary, opening with the magnificent Wipeout before belting out all of the album favourites to this point. It is also a masterclass of musicianship, something that the band lost on later live albums like Psychobilly Revolution, which featured the rather reprehensible drumming of Wolfgang Hordemann, who decided to accent the first and second beats of every bar, which makes for dreadful repetition. Question 8. Your partner just left you. What are you putting on? The very best of Roy Orbison. With songs like It's Over, Running Scared, and In Dreams, Orbison provides the perfect soundtrack to misery. Question 9. Best sounding drums on an album. Ant Thomas's drum sound on Kicked Out of Hell, the gated reverb sound on the snare drum is thunderous, and the drum sound as a whole is immense. Question 10. A favourite artist who is a member of 2 or more bands. Jim Heath, who is the lead musician in the Reverend Horton Heat and Reverend Organ Drum. Question 11. Beatles or Stones? Undoubtedly the Beatles, largely owing to their acute ear for a melody. I suspect that most people of a rockabilly persuasion would opt for the Rolling Stones, but I note that Daryl Hyam played on a super cover of I've Just Seen a Face from the Help album. Question 12. You found a bag of weed, what do you listen to? I imagine that I would pop on some space rock such as Hawkwind or the Ozric Tentacles, or possibly Pandemonium by Killing Joke. Question 13. An artist whose political stance has alienated you? Fortunately, my favourite genres of music seem to be fairly apolitical. Question 14. Show a favourite record label? Diablo Records, based in Camden. This label put out some splendid psychobilly albums by the likes of the Moonshine Stalkers and the Guitar Slingers in the 2010s. Or maybe Nervous Records, that put out a series of superb psychobilly albums in the late 80s, including by Batmobile, the Coffin Nails, Restless Torment and the Quakes. Question 15. A run of 3 great singles? The Stray Cats, Runaway Boys, Rock This Town and Stray Cat Strut, all released in 1980. Question 16. A record store day purchase that you still consistently play? I don't have one, as I have never bought a record on record store day. Question 17. You can be reincarnated as any artist, dead or alive. Who would you be? Elvis Presley, the greatest voice of all time and the instigator of it all. Just a shame that he died so young and in such a state. Question 18. Best 3 lines in a song? Well, everything I ever done was only done for you, but now you can go and do just what you want to do. I'm telling you, because I ain't going to be made to look a fool no more. Taken from There Ain't No Pleasing You by Chaz and Dave, and admittedly rather more than 3 lines, or I've Got the Hungries for Your Love and I'm Waiting in Your Welfare Line by Buck Owens. Question 19. An album that you never tire of? 1988's Kicked Out of Hell by Demented Are Go, the album that took psychobilly to the next level. It's chock-a-block with classics from Satan's Rejects to Surf Ride to Oblivion to Decomposition and Shadow Crypt. It is a masterpiece. Question 20. Share your favourite VC channel. Norman Masloff and Vinyl Rich, both extremely well informed. So that is it, my first contribution to the vinyl community. I'd appreciate it if you might like this video and subscribe to my channel. This is, to my knowledge, the first venture into rockabilly and psychobilly in the vinyl community on YouTube, but I would love to hear from others who are so inclined.